everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be diving into another holiday release. You guys, we are kind of bombarded with holiday releases. It's like all these brands are just throwing all of these holiday launches all at us at once, right? So today's all going to be about Nars. They launched several pieces for their holiday launch. I went ahead and picked up the eyeshadow palette along with the blush palette. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I created 3 eyeshadow looks using the palette. I will also be sharing some swatches and comparisons so you guys can see how this palette compares to other palettes out on the market and if it's something that you need in your collection. So let's dive into the information about this palette. This is called the Stargaze Palette. It is limited edition, like I said. It retails for $60. I picked it up on the Nars website. It is being described as a limited edition palette of 12 intensely pigmented shades and featuring an eye-catching lineup of velvety neutrals and shimmering pops of color. High performance mattes creates the perfect smoky eye. Pearlescent powders delivers on the drama silky satin glide on creamy shine. And glittering toppers brighten eyes with a multi-dimensional starry-eyed surprise. Ultra blendable color, unbelievable payoff. Ultimate Party Palette featuring a holiday edition palette embellished with a star-studded design. So that is all of the details. It does have quite a bit of textures in it. Like they mentioned, these shades right here are mattes. This shade is kind of a topper shade. It's kind of a mixture between a shimmer and a topper. It applies really pretty. Same as this shade. These are your traditional shimmer shadows right here. This periwinkle purple and this shade here at the bottom, they're more of like a satin matte. So they have a little bit of shimmer to them, but they're not very strong. This palette does have quite a bit of variety. You can also tell this palette has a lot of depth. So this is the 3rd palette that I have played with just in the last couple of weeks that has a lot of depth, and I was so excited to play with it, and I think the 3 eyeshadow looks that I created with it turned out really pretty, so I'm excited to share them with you. Let's talk about the cheek palette. So this is called the Rising Star Cheek Palette. It also retails for $60. It is a holiday palette featuring Nars award-winning blush in 6 limited edition shades designed for all skin tones. The translucent microspheres suspend pure pigments to form a innovative, lightweight powder base that achieves maximum color clarity and also features a holiday edition compact with a star embossed design. I keep forgetting. So I can't really flip this up too far because this shade pops out. I gotta glue it down. So you can see that the actual shades do have a really pretty embossed design on them. I also apply this on the face and kind of share my thoughts. That's all of the information on both of these products. Let's go ahead and dive into the 3 tutorials using the eyeshadow palette. Then we will jump into the application of the blush palette. And then of course, we will go ahead and jump into the swatches and comparisons. And in my swatches and comparisons, I will share images with and without a flash. A flash is a nice way to see the undertones of some of the shades. So once we get through those, I will go ahead and jump into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. Let's go ahead and jump into look number 1 using this palette. What I like about this is that it offers a lot. So you have some of these warmer golds, and then you have this really pretty kind of brown color. And then you have some of the purples and the pinks, like really pretty palette. I'm kind of excited about it. So I'm gonna take my blending brush and I'm gonna go into this shade right here. Now that shade looks like it's really pigmented. I'm gonna go in lightly with it and kind of use it as the base. And then I'm going to go into the shimmer shade right here. And I'm going to place that all over the center of the lid. That shade seems like it might be better applied with a finger. I'm able to use a brush, but I think a finger might be better. Okay, now I'm gonna go into this shade right here. I'm kind of putting that right there on the line just to kind of deepen it up. Okay, so far these mattes are amazing. They're blending so beautifully. Now I'm gonna go into this shade right here and I'm gonna pop that right on the center just to add some dimension. That gold shade is gorgeous. And I didn't get any fallout and it's not all over in my lashes. The gold shade is a little bit in my lashes, but not bad. Okay. So I'm back. I went ahead and put on some concealer and I just have to say, I really like these mattes. So far, the two mattes that I've used, they're extremely buttery, but really pigmented. They kind of remind me of a Natasha Denona matte, where they're really easy to work with, really pigmented, but blend out really easily. And I'm impressed so far with the mattes. I'm gonna go into this matte and I'm gonna sweep that here on the lower lash line. See the pigment I'm talking about? But if you get any harsh lines, you can blend them out easily. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, I took my makeup wipe and kind of wiped this, but then I took a brush and kind of just went over it and it blended right out. Like it blended out so easier than some others that I have. So I was really impressed with that. Okay, now I'm gonna take a flat tip brush and go into that maroon color. I'm gonna bring that along there. Really pretty. I mean, these mattes are phenomenal. They kind of have a softness to them. Like, see how they swatch? They have a really soft butter. You can kind of see that they have that buttery texture. The mattes, these are some of the best from Nars. They're fantastic. But as far as the eyeshadow look goes, I'm gonna leave it here because I am gonna be wiping it off to do the third look. So I don't wanna put on a bunch of mascara and stuff. I love the way this eyeshadow look turned out. So easy to create, so simple. Really, really excited about this palette. So that's it for look number one. Let's go ahead and jump into look number two. For look number two, I'm gonna go directly into this shade, but I'm gonna go in so lightly because based on my experience with the first eye look, it's definitely got a lot of pigment. So I'm gonna tap off and I'm gonna sweep that in the crease. I wanna see what that color looks like on its own and see if you can use it as a base. But boy, is it pigmented. So I just wiped off and now I'm just gonna blend it out. So that shade you can totally use as a transition. Just go in super lightly, like tap off your brush, go in, and then if you feel like you have too much pigment, wipe your brush off, and then go in and blend it out. So you can totally use it as a transition. You just have to be kind of careful with it. Okay, now I'm gonna go into this color, and I'm gonna bring that on my lid. What I'm noticing right away is that these shimmers are harder to apply with a brush. So best probably applied with a finger, which I have the hardest time because of my nails. So I'm gonna try to build that up with a brush now that I have the base down. Now I want to lightly grab this color, lightly, because it's bright and dark. And I'm gonna sweep that over the crease just to give it that color, because that color works so well with that pink shimmer. I'm also going to bring that here on the outer corner. Oh, see how pigmented that is? But again, it blends out really easily though. So there's something to be said about that, right? Here's the thing. This color, I have to be careful with on me because I always feel like it makes me look like I have a black eye. It's not my favorite tone for me personally. Now, you know, that is a very popular color. It is very bright. It's kind of like a magenta, raspberry-ish, right? But for me, it can be a little tricky because I always feel like I have a black eye when I wear those shades. So, you know, to each his their own. It's kind of, you know, that might be in my head. I don't know. But okay, went ahead and threw on some concealer. I want to grab this shade. Oh, that shade. That shade over top is gorgeous. It's like an icy color. I'm going to go into this shade right here. And I'm going to smoke that into, ooh, the outer corner. Now I'm just going to take my blending brush and just kind of blend it all together. And then also kind of, I gotta soften up this line out here. Okay, so I'm done. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it here because I'm gonna wipe everything off to do the third and final look. Just like with the last look, it just doesn't make sense to put on a bunch of mascara. But this is a really beautiful look. That's it for look number 2. Let's go ahead and jump into look number 3, which will be the final look. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this. This look is gonna be all about this shade, because I think it's beautiful. And it's kind of a matte, but it has the smallest amount of sparkles, so it's kind of like a shimmer at the same time. It's a very gorgeous shade, and I'm excited to play with it. So I'm gonna go directly into that shade, and I'm gonna use that shade as kind of the focal. Oh, I can't wait, I'm so excited. I love me a periwinkle purple. I love that shade so much that I want to bring that up and into the crease. What I like about this is that it's really beautiful, but it's not super shimmery. So it has a very beautiful texture, and a lot of the periwinkle shades that I have in my collection are either matte or they're super shimmery, and this one is neither of those. Like, it is beautiful. Oh my gosh, that shade is pretty, right? So now I'm gonna go into this gray matte, and I'm gonna sweep that in the crease just to kind of use that to kind of blend this out. And this gray matte is pretty. Normally, you guys have probably heard me say this a few times, but I'm not the biggest fan of grays. They don't look that great on me, but if they're a good base, like if they have a good undertone, then they work. But if they don't, they're not my favorite. This gray shade goes gorgeous with that periwinkle. I mean, you can see they're kind of blending together in a most beautiful way. I'm gonna now go into this shade, and I'm gonna place that here on the outer corner. So that shade is kind of the same texture as the periwinkle. It's not a full shimmer, but it's not a matte either. It's kind of a satin shade. So I'm just gonna kind of blend those two into that outer corner like that. Now just to add a little bit of something on the center where those two shades meet, I'm gonna go into that really pretty pink color. And I'm gonna add the softest amount, like right there. And I did get some fallout, so just FYI. Not bad, but I got some fallout. I'm gonna start with the periwinkle color, kind of following with what I have on the upper. So I'm gonna bring that like right here. I'm gonna grab a little bit of the gray color, just a little bit, just to give it some depth. And then I'm gonna take a pencil brush. I'm gonna go into that purple, that really dark one. And I'm gonna bring that right here. And then I'm gonna take my pencil brush and go into the shade and grab a little bit of the purple. Not pencil brush, what is this? Flat tip brush. Don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm gonna bring that right at the base of the lashes on the upper and the lower. Okay, so this is the final look for look number 3. I just ate an acai bowl with blueberries, so it kind of turned my teeth a little purple and my lips, but it was so good. I just love them. They are my favorite. I love the way that this eyeshadow look turned out. I think it's really beautiful. I love a periwinkle purple because I feel like it's so complimentary on the eye. And it's just one of my favorite purples. One thing that I did do is I grabbed this shade and I used it as a brow bone highlight and added a little bit on the inner corner. So that's it for all of the tutorials using the palette. Let's go ahead and jump into the cheek palette and then we will jump into the swatches. Let's try on this palette. I'm really excited. These are all new shades, by the way, which is really exciting. And this packaging is exactly like the palette, just smaller. So there's the size difference. That's the palette. This one in the back is the cheek palette. Those are really pretty shades. That peachy color, oh my gosh. Hold on, you guys. That shade is so beautiful. Oh. Purple. Oh, okay. These are beautiful and so soft, like the softest textures. These are really pretty.
Oh, they just fell out.
Mine just fell out. Hold on. So I'm gonna have to glue it back, which sucks. So be careful with that. Be really careful with that. I want to try this shade and this shade. I just want to see what they look like. So I'm gonna grab this shade first. Okay, and then I'm gonna grab this peachy shade. This might not be the right brush. I'm having a hard time picking it up. So I might need a different brush. I might need something that's a little bit more dense. So this brush is a little wispy. I might need something a little dense like this one from BK Beauty and the Angie from Hot and Flashy collection. So I'm going to try not to pick up that maroon though. That's the thing, is that you have to be careful with a bigger brush. Why am I not picking up anything? It takes quite a bit to get these to pick up because they're kind of like a baked formula. Yeah, this blush palette's hard to use. They feel creamy, but you really have to work hard to get, I mean, and it looks like a lot comes off on the brush, but it really doesn't. So like I'm going like this, and it's hard with this big brush just to grab that shade. So I'm kind of going in between the two of them just so I don't pick up this dark one. And you just, I don't love it. I don't love it. It's too hard. It's too hard to use. It's too hard to pick up anything. And I don't really want to work that hard. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of these shades are quite strong. Now I'm going into the shade right here on the end. So some of these shades are quite strong, right? So it's not like that it's not that it's a bad thing that you have to kind of work hard to get the pigment, but it's not my favorite. Especially this one. Like, this is a hot mess. I don't know why this one is so hard to apply because it swatches beautifully. I don't get it. I'm going to try one more thing. I don't know, you guys. I don't quite understand this, but I'm going to grab this brush from the Sonia G Lotus set. Okay, so now I'm starting to get some pigment. It's almost like maybe, ooh, now I'm starting to get a lot. It's almost like, ooh, I got a powder. But it's almost like you have to kind of take that top layer off to get something from it. I don't know, but I'm gonna powder and throw some bronzer on. I'll be right back. Okay, so I went ahead and put some bronzer on. I powdered, and I do have a lot of blush on. I do, but I was able to kind of calm it down. So we're going to play with that highlighter. I am kind of curious because I struggled so much getting some pigment. I mean, I ended up applying a lot of blush because I had to go in so many times just to get a little bit of something. So I'm kind of curious to see what the highlighter looks like. So I'm going to take a dense brush. I got to wait, make sure it's clean. I'm going to take a dense brush. This is the tapered highlighter from Sigma. And it just does not look like it's picking anything up. This palette is freaking weird. Is this like a topper? This might be a blush topper. I need to look at this. It's a blush topper, I think. I don't think it's a highlighter. I think this is meant to go over your blush because it's so lightly pigmented. I think it's meant to go over your blush to kind of give you a little bit of sparkle to it. So let's try it. I mean, why not? So I'm gonna grab this shade right here. It's a very, very soft blush topper. So it gives you a little bit of shimmer. Whew. Now I gotta calm all this down again. Gives you a little bit of shimmer, but it's not like super overwhelming. I don't know how I feel about this blush palette. I'm kind of on the fence about it. By the way, I wanted to mention, I'm just wearing my lip gloss that I created with Christian Audet, the shade Ray. Ray was named after my daughter. Love it. Her name is Madison Ray. And this gloss is so beautiful. And it always goes, I wear it all the time. It's pretty much the gloss that I wear all the time. And I love wearing this beautiful gloss with this periwinkle. I thought it was pretty. But anyways, that's it for the blush palette application. Let's go ahead and jump into the swatches. I'm going to swatch the palette and the blush palette and compare it to some others so that you guys can see how they compare. And then I will jump into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. Okay, so I'm back to give my final thoughts. I do hope that those swatches and comparisons were helpful. I went through so many of my palettes and I really didn't have a lot of eyeshadow palettes that had these tones in it. And I like that because this palette is quite unique for my personal collection. So I was happy about that. And I actually really like this palette. I really don't have anything negative to say about it. I think you're gonna, number one, need to love depth. So again, this is a palette with a lot of depth. It just doesn't really have a lot of light tones as far as light mattes and stuff, except for this pretty gray. It is a pretty gray color, by the way. It's not a weird, ugly gray. It's a nice tone of gray, but it doesn't have a lot of light tones. So especially if you have fair or light medium skin, just be mindful of that this palette has a lot of depth. And I'm not saying that this palette won't work for you, but I do think this palette would probably work best in conjunction with another palette so that you can use some of these mattes to kind of create some depth, but maybe go into other palettes with lighter mattes so that you can kind of build the crease without having to build with these darker colors. Just kind of a tip. But overall, I really love it. Do I feel like it's fully necessary and do I think it's worth $60? No. As much as I do like it, I do not feel like it's worth $60. I just don't. It's not a Natasha Denona palette. And I know that brands are starting to raise their prices. I mean, everything is going up, right? So I get it. But I would say this palette's worth like 40, 45-ish. Not 60. Maybe if it comes in stock at Sephora, you know, I do know that the sale's gonna start, what is it, late October, early November, sometime in that area. I can't remember exactly, but if you can get it for 20% off or 15% off, that's what I would recommend, because I do not feel like this palette is worth $60. Though it is pretty, that is a lot of money. And these textures are just not fully worth it, right? Because there's the only thing, in my opinion, that stands out as far as texture is the mattes, because the mattes are super buttery. Just a fantastic formula. And the NARS are kind of hit and miss for me when it comes to mattes. Sometimes they're so dry, and then other times they're phenomenal. And this one is phenomenal. But as far as the shimmer shades and stuff, they're not super special enough to justify that price tag. But if you had your eye on this palette and you love NARS, you won't be disappointed. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Let's talk about this blush palette. So here's the thing about this blush palette. This formula, even though the shades look really intense, these are meant to be very buildable. And I do like that you have a lot of control when it comes to the intensity of these. You guys saw that I struggled trying to get any pigment to apply, especially with this shade. I was struggling. And it seems like once I took off that top layer, because it's kind of that baked formula, once I took off the top layer, I had a way better experience, so be mindful of that. Now, this palette is pretty much the exact same formula as last year's palette. This is last year's. And the only difference is this one, you know, this new one has some of those magenta tones, but they have the same texture. This one has more of a highlighter versus, I just wouldn't call that a highlighter. I would call it more of a blush topper, but maybe I'm wrong. It could go both ways. You could use that as a blush topper, or you can totally use it as a highlighter. Doesn't really matter. But if you liked last year's formula, you will really love this one. So if you bought this one and you fell madly in love with it and you've used it throughout the year, you will absolutely love this new one. The one thing that I do want to mention is that this palette is highly rated on the Sephora website, but what you have to do is scroll down to the reviews, and there's a little button that says non-incentivized reviews. Click that and you'll notice all of the reviews kind of disappear. So there's only one review from someone that actually purchased it. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these new products, because brands will send them out. There's a lot of programs out there. Influencer, like there's a lot of them out there. And you're required to leave a review. And a lot of them are honest, and a lot of them just do it because they want to stay in the program. So just keep that in mind. But I don't think this palette is bad, but I don't know that I love it. I'm not like overly in love with this palette. Biggest complaint with this is that I'm gonna have to use a small brush or just go into both shades, right? Is it worth my $60? I just don't know about that. This one I would also recommend picking up on the sale. I don't know, you guys, I'm not feeling it. With that said, I did not have any problem spending $49 on a Gucci blush. So that's just my preference, you guys. I'm obsessed with those Gucci blushes. And if you were gonna spend your money, this would be a way better buy than those Gucci blushes. So keep that in mind. But overall, I like it, but I'm not like flipping over it, right? So I don't really have anything negative to say, but I don't really have anything that makes me want to flip for joy from it either. So I don't know, you guys. I could take it or leave it. It's kind of where I'm at. That's it for my review. Sound off down below. How many of you guys have picked up this blush palette or the eyeshadow palette? What is your experience? How many of you guys have the blush palette from NARS from last year? Do you love it? Did you not use it? I'm so curious to hear. Sound off down below. Let's have a conversation. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you. Bye.